Okay, this is Don Taylor, part two. We got things situated. I had too much junk on my phone, so data or whatever. Also, my little interruption where I told him I was doing a video and I had something to do was my son, and he wanted ice cream for breakfast slash brunch. These are important factors in life. Anyway, so he took care of that. Now, what I was saying was in Romans chapter 9, there's different things that Paul is breaking down about the fact that um, God had chosen people because of their specific behaviors, because of them being attached to those who were heart condition was correct and was right. And I was saying that sometimes we can be in that weird place where we see stuff happening for other people and we're like, I'm doing this, that, and the other. Why is that not happening for me? And I said, I've been in that position before where it kind of sets you up with this like a survivor's remorse, where when you have favor in a certain area, you have blessings coming to you in a certain area, you have situations happening for you in a certain area, and they're not happening for your loved ones or friends, and they're looking at you like, why you get that and I don't get that? Or flipped, we might look at somebody else the same way. But for me, I've been in that situation several times with different people where it was like, I almost felt guilty, like that sinful nature, that sinful identity that Satan tries to attach to us to see things in a skewed way, because we see it in a flesh way and not in a spiritual way, not in a godly way. But we almost start feeling guilty and bad on our own for the fact that we have, because God set our life up in a certain way, or because we have certain blessings, certain things that are afforded to us or that come through to us or come to us, and someone else is struggling for that. Or like you buy a house, no reason you should get a house. You just had a whole bunch of favor working in your aspect, and somebody else who's been planning and saving and all this other stuff gets denied their loan or something like that, and you almost feel guilty for like, dang, I'm like, I don't really know why it came through for me and it didn't come through for you. Like, there is something that is attached to that in a human way where we want to feel bad for the other person that's not getting whatever it is, and we almost feel bad for the fact that we're getting whatever it is, when neither of those thoughts should really enter into our brain. Of course, there is apathy, empathy, and compassion. Like, there's all those things that we strive to have and should have as human beings in this world, but it should be in a way where you can congratulate others and congratulate yourself when God is showing out in your life, and not have to make excuses and feel bad for the fact that God is showing out in your life, because it almost is like a slap in the face, is it not, when God does something for you, whether you prayed for it, asked for it, begged and did all these different things, and then this situation comes out for you, or if it's something you didn't even think about, but God just bestowed it on you because he knows what he's doing. So in Romans 9, there's verses that sit there and talk about, like, who are we to ask God what is he doing? What are you doing with me? Why did you make me this way? Why did you make me the hard-hearted one? Why did you make me the soft-hearted one? Why did you make me the one that, Moses? Or why did you make me Joseph? Or why did you make me, why am I the one in the pit? Why am I the one on the throne? Like, who are we to ask God? Who are we as the clumps of clay to ask the potter, like, why you make me this way? And it also explains the fact that, like, is he not the potter? Can he not do what he wants to do? Does he not have the ability to make a dish or a pot or a clay or whatever you want to call it? Does he not have the authority, the preeminence, the right to make one dish for something special occasions and one dish for everyday ordinary use? Does he not have the right to choose what he's doing with his creations? So the fact that the verse says that Paul's explaining to us, like God is the one that determines this stuff, I think it's a humbling factor. And again, it's a a revelation for the fact that, like, we don't have a need to make excuses whether good or bad happens in our lives. We don't have a need to regret or feel bad whether good or bad happens in our life. Like, we are, if our mind is right, are we not the creation? We're not the creator. We are the creation. So therefore, if God blessed me with 9 kids, if that's what my body bore, whether I have a husband or not, whether they have active fathers or not, whether I have a house for them or not, whether I, have income for them or not, whether I have whatever I have, is that not his right? Because who are we to say what the cause and the purpose is? And you know how crazy and insane it makes you if you are trying to figure out the purpose of the creator of the universe and his motivations in doing what he does? That makes you absolutely insane. That's impossible. It's cool when people give their testimony, and it helps us, kind of see things in a good light when they give their testimony and say, after the fact, hindsight 2020, like, I know God did this in my life because he was setting this up. That's cool. I ain't got no issue with that. Holy Spirit gives us revelations so that we can glean off of that knowledge and wisdom off of each other. Like, that's cool. Like, that's what the whole Bible is about, right? It gives us hindsight because the stories are written after the fact most of the time to say, like, to show you, like, here's what God was doing, here's what he did, and here's why he did it. Cool. And we get to learn his character that way. Cool. But for us to painstakingly take out time to be like, God gave me these children because this was going on, and because I do that, and because that's happening, and he wanted to do that, and he wanted to prove that, and did he do that for that, and why he didn't give you 9, and you always wanted kids, and you were this and that. Because, sometimes we want to, as humans, that sinful nature, that flesh nature, wants to try to validate God's actions and what happens. Like, why is it a crackhead who loses custody of her kids and never gets off of drugs continues to keep having babies when there's a family sitting somewhere that's perfectly aligned to support and care for a child and continues to have miscarriages? In our head, we look at that and we want to say that's not right. We want to validate it. We want the ability to say what's right and what's wrong and judge the situation for that should never have happened. And what's interesting to me, and I'm just using that as an example, but what's interesting to me is often when we do that, there are so many factors we don't take into account. And you know why that happens? Because we are people. We're the created ones, not the creator. We are the creation, not the one that makes all the decisions and can be everywhere at one time and see everything at once and be in everything at the same time. We don't have that ability and never have, never will. So therefore, we can't even wrap our heads around an nth of the power and magnitude of who God is. Why do we keep on hitting our head against the wall thinking that we can figure this out or become the creator? Why do we keep trying to take over that role? And there's no possible way that we will ever get it right. So what I feel like is Romans 9 should just relieve us of a whole bunch of pressure that we add on to ourselves, and that we allow the evil one to add on to us also. Like I said, that sinful nature, that excuse me, that flesh nature that thinks, like, to feel bad or to somehow justify an action that was not in our hands to begin with. You know, some of the interesting parts about finding my husband later in life, after having relationships and him having relationships and us having children and all that different things, it puts into that weird conversation and idea of, you know, the ones who weren't, of them being like trying to figure out why they weren't, and trying to figure out where they still fit in and how to still fit in and all these other things. And it's like, it is because it is. God does what he wants to do. That should give us comfort. It shouldn't conflict us and confuse us and upset us and drive us to these angst and levels of like trying to then manipulate the situation to still turn around to be just for us, or for us to even dig in on ourselves, like where we were lacking or where we weren't enough or where we must have messed up or we must have been this and we must have got that wrong. Because there's no set formula, I guess would be the word. There's no recipe for being the answer to a problem in this earth. There's no recipe. There's no, okay, if I want to be the one that God sends to do this, that, the other, the other, then I need to do this, that, and this. And then I'm going to be the one that's in that situation. That's not how he works. He does what he wants to do, when he wants to do it, how he wants to do it. And that's why you can see people who are believers still missing the mark, still not fulfilled or satisfied in the life that they have serving God, still lost and confused, still sitting in church, angry, bitter, and just not okay. That's why you can see people who are even in ministry just being off in certain ways because they tried to put together a formula or recipe of how to move God's hand to give them things that they thought they were supposed to have and the life that it was supposed to look like, and it didn't work out after they did everything on the list. Because the one thing that they didn't do was follow God without borders, without limits, without boxing him in, without this is how it's supposed to be, without any of that. Like, just follow God. It says in Romans 9 that they were not children of Israel because of flesh, but because of spirit. Because there were some that just followed God. There were some who were by flesh lined up for that title, for that area, for all of that. And they were the ones that said, crucify him, you know. They were the ones that just didn't get it. They were the ones that was saw by John the Baptist as you brood of vipers. Who told you where to go? Because I know you didn't get it from nowhere. John was like, I know, Holy Spirit didn't tell you nothing. So who told you? Because y'all ain't nothing but a brood of vipers. That's how they could be a brood of vipers, yet still walk with everything earthly and fleshly on them that designated them as children of God, as his close ones. Everything that you looked at on them spoke that. Their robes, their gowns, their headdresses, their beards, everything on them said, this is who I am, and nothing inside of them correlated. And that's how still us as believers can get so twisted and so wrapped up behind stuff. And we can say, how can that minister, murder his family and stick them in a suitcase? How can that priest do this and that to those children? How can the Pope do this? How can that's how we can look and see people who had these titles and designations of being someone in God's favor, in his flock, in his fold, and do some heinous, crazy things because they were following flesh and not following the Spirit. Romans 9 basically breaks that all down, and the reason they did that is because they wanted to be the creator and not the creation, because the creation gives up all rights for decision-making process. The creation has to be surrendered. The creation has to be pliable. The creation has to be moldable. The creation has to stop being so self-insecure and guilty and shameful and boastful and look at me and I can't believe I did that and all of that. Like, the creation can't do none of that, because you might be for special occasions and you might be for everyday use. And that might even change within seasons. You don't get the decision, the choice. Ain't nobody coming to you checking that. You get to accept or deny. The possibility is given in front of you. You get to accept or deny. That's all you get. There's no board meeting where they say, hey, come in here. What would you like? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit is not consulting us on how we move as the creation, but because he loves us so much, he still keeps us in the loop on our options, and we get to accept or deny. You want to be the creation today, or you want to be over there stomping your feet in stubbornness, trying to figure out why things ain't going your way. Because even when in our grief, when situations don't work out the way we want, it doesn't matter the degree. I think sometimes also we feel like the magnitude of the situation makes it somehow more of God's concern. Like, if it is about life or death, if it's about cancers or people being born or dying, if it's about, something that seems so drastic and important to us, then this is of great concern to God, and therefore he will allow us to then manipulate and put our hands into the mix of how it's created and what happens. But alas, not so much. That's not how that works, because we're still either the creation or the creator. And when we choose to be the creator, we don't get to create what we think we're going to create. You creating havoc, you creating mess, you creating frustration, you creating confusion, you're creating unmet expectations, you're creating ridiculousness. And that's what you get to be the creator of when you think that you're going to make something happen. It is our privilege and our birthright to be the creation. Why are we not happy with that and satisfied? Just saying. We all got choices. There's no reason for the moment of why this didn't happen. Why is that not like that? Why can't we? Oh my gosh. Even thinking about it is just ridiculous. But what's crazy is, like, what I've done in my life is because of that, and that remorse, I've tried to shrink myself and put myself into a container of the expectations of others who wanted to be the creator. And therefore, it was like I was going right along with them trying to create the situation, because I was trying to create myself, recreate myself into something that God did not say I was. I've spent a whole heck of a lot of my time trying to be the mess, trying to be downplayed, trying to be the ugly one, trying to be less light, trying to be more chaos, trying to be ridiculous, trying to be everything that nobody wanted to be around or deal with. Because when I was just being who God had for me to be, I felt like I was shining too bright, because it made everyone else around me uncomfortable. And what I didn't realize was I was just in the wrong situation at the wrong time. I was putting myself in the wrong places, because those who are uncomfortable about the light that God has created in you is not your problem. Those who are somehow innately bothered and therefore need to bring you down closer to where they feel like they are, instead of reaching up and pulling themselves into a higher level of where you already orbit, is not your problem. Because again, you are only the creation. You can just be what God created. You can just be the display of his glory. I mean, it's almost like, to put it into culture terms or examples, it's almost like the kids who, you bring into this world, and then they see themselves as something different. And then everything that you raised, everything that you tried to instill in them, they now have turned that around and said, well, this is who I really am. Or I'm really this, that, and the other. And not just about gender or anything like that, but like, we've seen that in like Dr. Phil with, kids who wanted to be of a different race or culture or whatever than what they were actually raised in, and things of that nature. And you're just kind of like, if you were the parent who raised that person, for them to turn around and then try to put themselves into a different design, is it not more about, the obvious things is people to feel like insulted or feel like what's wrong with who you are and what's wrong with how I raised you and everything like that. But besides that, is it not about you making sure everyone around you just accepts you for who you are? Can you not be a man that has feminine tendencies, or what we call feminine tendencies, and just be your personality, without us putting a label on it or saying that you have to check this box or that box, or now you have to dress this way or that way, or assume this identity or that identity? Why are you not just who you are? That's what the culture acts like they want to do, but it's never what the culture actually does. Because the culture, once again, is like I've heard in other people's sermons, like the culture is building a kingdom, right? It's just kingdom for God or kingdom for Satan. That's it. There's only two options. There's nothing else. And so if you think about it, if we were the type of people who celebrated everybody for just who they are, their personality, their inclinations, the way they move, the way they talk, the way they hold their head, the way they do their hair, the way they what clothes they're, comfortable in, and everything like that, if we just accepted people for being who they were, we would no longer have to change who we are, or how we were born, or how God designed us, or how God built us. We would no longer have to change that, because we would just all be us and free in that situation. That would build the kingdom if we were that minded, if we did that. If instead of telling kids they were too loud and needed to sit down, instead of telling kids they were too wild and too crazy, instead of saying to someone, why can't you be nice like your brother? Why can't you do that like your sister? Why can't you do this like so and so? Instead of us talking that way to people, instead of us saying like, you're too dark, you'd be really pretty for someone who's so dark, you're really, this for someone who's looked like that, like I have that all through my family. I've dealt with that. I deal with it with my husband. Just the whole weirdness that this doesn't line up with that. We have an assumption about this, and why are you not like this, that, and the other? Because this is what I assumed those type of people are, and that's what they should do, and this is how they should act. If we didn't do all of that, and we just dealt with everybody how they are, would that not be building God's kingdom? Because of the fact that he is the creator. He gets to choose what's for special occasions, what's for everyday use, who does what, how, when, why, and the other. But instead, we have bought into this lie that we have to label, relabel, mislabel, redirect, rechange, group, identify things that have no identification. And that's the way we should see it. It's hilarious to me that people, groups yell about like, I just want to be accepted for who I am. And then the same group of people go through all the time and effort to make up a subgroup and groupings and labelings and quantifiers and all this other stuff to say who they are. Is that not the opposite of accepting somebody for who they are? Should it not be? Should I not have to mark a box saying that I'm Black American and not Hispanic? Can I not just put my name? What kingdom is that building? So, can we not just be the creation that God created? And can we not just rejoice over whatever that creation leads? And can we not figure out in ourselves how our specific journey and our specific walk and our specific things that God gives us individually, because are we not already excited by the fact that we all have something individual to begin with, that we're not all clumped into one thing, that just because I'm a Black American female, that my walk is exactly like every other Black American female? Like, are we not excited by that? I am excited by the fact that the creator of a whole entire universe sees me specifically, individually, to give me my personality and the things that I like and the things I dislike and the things that I do and the ways that I talk and my mannerisms and all this stuff. He gave those to me specifically, just to me. So now, can we not rejoice in that? Can we not celebrate that for whatever that is? For whatever hardships come with it and whatever celebrations come with it and triumphs come with it. Can everything that is specific for just me not be enough? Romans 9, just think about it. Just saying. Your life is enough. What God is doing in it is enough. Who you are is enough. Just as you are. Just follow the Spirit. Let God be enough. And then take that same mentality and use it towards everyone else that you see. Every other situation that you deal with. Instead of looking at it about like how it affects you and how it makes you feel and How about we start looking at situations for the fact that this is how the creator designed that. This is how the creator placed that. This is what is my plan in this? What does he want me to do? What's the response the creator wants from me in this situation, in this injustice, in this outrage, in this glory, in this whatever? What is the response the Creator wants from me individually? What if we all did that? What an amazing place it would be, right? Have a good day.